Thank you for tuning in. So I wanted to set some context for this video. So I had some technical problems. I've been really sick as of late, but I still wanted to put on this video in the philosophical fellowship. And unfortunately, I had some technical problems at the end. So what we're doing is an awareness practice as a basis to start to open up a more of a philosophical conversation, moving into dialogo. So I give the instructions in the beginning so you can get a layout for what we're doing. But it's an inquiry practice of awareness is, naming what awareness is, taking turns between all of us, and then awareness notices, and then opening into dialogue about the belonging together, or the way in which mind and being belong together, and bringing language to that and dialogue. And unfortunately, a quarter of the way through, the internet dropped, and so a couple of participants needed to step out. So that's the other video. The rest of the conversation is kind of actually ends up standing on its own. I have it in another video, so you can watch that second part. So I wanted to give some context for that, but this is really great. This is the ongoing series, I guess you could say, of these experiments in looking at, I would say, an original unity of philosophical inquiry as something primordially transformative, inherently transformative, when done with the right attitude and fully. And our ongoing experiments into cultivating this, into finding new ways of realizing this, making it more and more available for everybody. Also, some housekeeping. Art of Circling is open for registration. Incredible experience. I'd highly recommend doing this if you're interested. The links for that is below. We also have open evenings for circling if you're interested in circling and want to explore it, every Thursday night at 7. I also do work with people one-on-one. You can email me. All the links for that are below. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it a lot.
So so this is my sense. In a similar kind of spirit to the philosophical fellowships thing that we did a couple of times. In that kind of that same spirit of that notion of philosophy as a practice, right? Of like being of that philosophy may not just be something that you can just acquire, right, or be informed about, right, or become an expert in, or just kind of pick and choose things, right, and bring it home and know it or possess it or something. But there's another part of it is in acquiring it. You must become someone who could have it, if you will. And there's an emphasis in that way of thinking about it, which makes sense, because it's like philosophy is the thing that gives, as Johannes would say, I think many philosophers say, like, philosophy is that which gives access human beings to being, right, to the world. It's like it's how we're able to open to intelligibility. And given that everything is available through intelligibility, right? If you have a fundamental shift in understanding or way that you understand it, it's a shift in how things are intelligible. and you are intelligibility. So it's kind of like there's a sense in which philosophy, when you start to look at what it is, it seems to be inherently transformative. Um, so that's a long way of saying I want to practice something. I want to tinker around with our psyches and see what happens. Um, so and so and one of the things that and I kind of came to this practice through a back door in a certain sense, and it was more on, I think it was a practice I heard about, um, which was more in a spiritual vein, like an Eastern meditative spiritual vein, and it was just like an inquiry process, right? Where what you do in a group, and I actually found it to be quite philosophical, which was surprising to me. I'm sure you guys are not going to be surprised, but it's just basically where you're just you're to bring your attention to your awareness, or that you're aware, and as you're experiencing it with the spirit of exploration, bring to language your experience of awareness in that moment. And it's tricky, right? You know, and they talk about it's tricky. And I think the purpose of, from a spiritual perspective, right, or a mindfulness perspective, I mean, I think mindful, like from a mindful like perspective, we would say it's like kind of the problem is that the mind often is never aware of its awareness. It's always aware of what it's aware of, right? So it becomes contextually dumb, if you will. So in some sense, it's like from a spiritual perspective or a mindfulness perspective, there's a sense in which just doing that is paying attention to the context of what you're aware of, right? Which is not often done. Which, if you think about it, if you do that, that's the essence of becoming detached from something, right? Is to be able to kind of make it go from subject to object. But what you're making object is quite mysterious, actually, when you start to look at it. So when you start to talk about awareness itself or try to bring language to it, you realize that like all you've ever talked about was the stuff in your awareness. You've never talked about, right, your the context of your awareness. And that's a very interesting thing, right? So the thing so what was interesting to me is I found myself in doing this, and I've been doing this every morning with a group of people, for about an hour a day. And I have found it to be intense. It feels almost exactly. It almost feels doing it in my experience, and I'm curious with you guys what you guys experience is. It's almost exactly what I picture. What Ivo De Janeiro talks about in listening to language, right? In the way I would imagine in Aristotle's metaphysics, when he, I guess you can name the metaphysics to sound out sense, right? This kind of notion of sounding out intelligibility or sounding out sense or bringing to language, listening to language and bringing it to word saving phenomena. That this kind of really deep thing of sounding it out, right, is exactly and what my experience has been in reading philosophy and doing philosophy is exactly, it feels exactly the same thing. So that strikes me. So what my first thought was, what we can do is do that, but in some sense do it with a sense of philosophy, or having a sense of not just a practice, but an actual sense of like encountering awareness and attempting to bring language to it, and fumble with it over and over again, right? Then take a few moments of silence, right? Like 10 minutes or so, and sit in silence, and then just notice. And then come back in, and then change the inquiry of what you're describing, which is just to describe what you're actually noticing in awareness. So, and my sense is that it's in some sense you're bringing your attention to the exact same thing, but you aren't, right? Because you're going to describe now what you're aware of. And so this, in my senses, is like, I think this is starts to get at this fundamental experience or question that I think philosophy kind of in some sense is, right? Which is, what is this connection between mind and being, right? What is this connection between knowledge or thinking and being or the world, right? What is this belonging together, and what is this separation that happens, and what are we doing when we look at these two angles? And that will be after we take another moment of silence, after we describe our present moment of awareness. Then we'll just enter into dialogue about, like, what is this belonging together, if it does. And in the third part of it, what I'd like to do is just see if we can kind of hold open the dialogue, like what we're dialoguing about, to hold open the awareness of both what we're dialoguing about, that what we're talking about on some level is what's happening. Right? And see if we can keep including that in some sense, or awareness of the impact of the conversation on awareness and on what we're noticing and on our experience as it's happening, right? As part of the conversation in some sense. While chewing gum, standing on one leg. Any thoughts, suggestions, ideas, questions, just about what we're going to be doing? Okay, so basically, like, we'll sit in 10 minutes of silence. Then the first round will be away, and you could just use this sentence stem you want. You can use others, you don't have to use the sentence stem, but a good sentence stem is awareness is. And no, like, paragraphs, like you want as concise as a sentence as possible. And you could find out what you say. And the goal isn't to say the right thing. The goal, right, is just to simply bring your attention to awareness itself. So it may be something like, for example, I'll just like an example would be like, awareness is the medium of experience. The awareness is the openness of appearance. Awareness is, right? Or you could say there is, whatever makes sense. And then we'll go around. I'll make a list of the people so we can just do the order, so we don't have to think about it much. And I'll go, and then the next person will go, next person will go. And then we'll switch, and then we'll go into silence, and then just feel. And then the next thing is, and this is the sentence stem that I'm going to suggest that we use for the next one, is awareness notices. So and you want to keep this one as descriptive as possible. So awareness notices sensations of heat in the hands and the belly. Awareness notices, and I would say there's, like, for each time we can do 1 to 3 awareness notices, and to keep it as phenomenologically close to what you're noticing as possible. And one of the ways to do that, one of the ways you can help yourself do that, is just first name the category of what you're describing. So if it's a sensation, right, I'm noticing sensations of pressure in my feet. I'm noticing thoughts of blue-purple cats flying up the noses of cows. I'm noticing, sensations of heat in my belly. Then we'll take 10 minutes, and then we'll then of silence, and then we'll just open the dialogue about how all that stuff comes together. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And if I spontaneously change the instructions, I'll let you know. All right. So I'll pause the recording for the silent part. Okay, so let's go ahead and get in the philosophical position. Awareness notices self-transparency. I'm sorry, not awareness notice. Get the wrong one. It's my sickness coming through here. Awareness is. Awareness is self-transparency.
Awareness is withdrawing and rising.
Awareness is the open close at the schism.
Awareness is the moment between two thoughts.
Awareness is something that has many degrees.
Awareness is boundless.
Awareness is the bidden unbidden.
Awareness is breathing.
Thomas, it's your turn.
Oh, I didn't hear Daniel. Apologies.
Yeah, that's well.
Awareness is homing being.
Awareness is versatile.
Awareness is always coming towards.
Awareness is water folding over water.
Awareness is self-withdrawing.
Awareness is light over light over light.
Awareness is letting wording die.
There is integrality.
Awareness is guidance.
Awareness is beyond.
Awareness is is gives.
Awareness is wonderful.
Awareness is
Awareness is unlifted takeoff.
Awareness is an enigma.
I think it's your turn, Piper.
Awareness is searching.
Awareness, tickling without a tickler.
Awareness is whispering silence.
awareness is welcoming.
Awareness is neither fully present nor fully absent.
Awareness is two-sided.
Awareness is reaching for.
Awareness hides in being aware.
Awareness is both plentiful and simple.
Awareness is togetherness.
Awareness is activity.
Awareness is always there.
Awareness is my heart.
Awareness is the hidden in the seek.
Awareness is in need of us.
Awareness is becoming more aware of itself.
There is yawning cleavage soothing.
Awareness is me.
Awareness is vibration.
Awareness is and isn't.
There is tension and opening.
Awareness is access and axis.
Awareness flees attentiveness.
Awareness is surprising even to itself.
Awareness is where winds meet.
Awareness is that which cannot be reified.
Awareness is playful.
Awareness is full.
Awareness got sense.
Awareness is an empty sky that holds.
Awareness is free.
Awareness is thrown openness.
There is beauty.
Awareness is confused.
Awareness suggestive to itself.
Awareness is neither right nor wrong.
Awareness is the sanctuary.
Awareness says, I am not that.
Awareness is not a thing.
Awareness distilling.
Awareness is a question for the beginning.
Awareness is also an answer.
Awareness is a thief of me.
Awareness is the thrower and the catcher.
Awareness is both beginning and end.
Awareness is abiding even when I forget.
There is a sense of roughness to it.
Awareness is all of us.
Awareness is waiting for us.
This doesn't remember signing up for any of it.
Mhm.
There is love.
Awareness is sad.
Awareness is what seeing has forgotten.
Awareness is wanting to be aware of itself.
Awareness is asking.
Awareness is room making for world.
Awareness is such.
Awareness is longing for probably what it already is.
Awareness is the disguise of itself.
Awareness is receding.
Awareness is holding.
Awareness lets go in coming to be.
Awareness is always already.
Awareness is alone with self.
There is theatricality to it.
Awareness is the divine sadness.
Awareness holds changing.
Awareness withholds in giving birth.
There is a deep yearning.
Awareness is a nest for awareness.
Awareness is re-entry.
Awareness is sharing.
Awareness holds the mystery.
Awareness is its own water drawing.
Awareness guides without guiding.
Awareness is playing with finding
There is differ.
Awareness is a magic that's powerless.
Awareness takes everything.
Awareness is the silent partner.
Awareness is inexhaustible.
awareness is the time of eternity.
There is language.
Awareness is what I'm saying.
Awareness won't leave.
The wave awareness is in the water announces what made it as it goes away.
Awareness is you and me.
Awareness lets itself be spoken.
Awareness is a speech that knows itself and that knows it doesn't know everything about it.
Awareness is impermanence.
Awareness finds everything.
Awareness is pure relation.
Awareness nourishes.
Awareness is at its opening.
Awareness carries messages.
Sensation draws on awareness?
There is a need.
Awareness is found, finder, and finds within it.
Awareness. Awareness can be blocked.
Awareness finds without being found.
Reality realizes.
Awareness is an image to be thought.
Awareness is spontaneous.
Awareness awareness can be killed.
Awareness is evidence of being.
Awareness smiles.
Awareness is joyous in it opening elsewhere, knowing that it can close.
Awareness is ceasing and listening up to its end.
Awareness is a binding that is never bound.
Awareness holds all.
Gratitude without keeping score.
awareness is both beyond and near.
Awareness tuned to its silence sings.
Awareness is the forthcoming collapse.
Awareness is a mirroring that is never seen.
Awareness can't be divided.
I've already let go of myself.
It is good.
Awareness is resting.
I think Leonard's frozen.
No, no. Or am I?
Okay, so let's go ahead. That's just about time. So let's go ahead and just sit in silence. And I'll press pause on this part on recording. And now, same order. Awareness notices, and then describe as immediately as you can whatever it is that you can notice, whatever it is awareness notices. And I'll go first. Awareness notices visual field of lights in center, fuzzy on the edges. Awareness notices senses of vibration in chest as speaking happens.
Awareness notices a light nothing in the palms of my hands.
Awareness notices heavier settling of my body in a slower now.
Awareness notices a sinking down Awareness notices photographs developed in the very heart of things. Awareness notices horizon of blue sky.
Awareness notices the others around me.
Awareness notices my fingers, light.
Awareness notices alternating sensations of pressure, of pulse in feet, hands, lips. Awareness notices sensation of coolness in nose from the breath that was just passed but down, noticing heat from air on lips as talking happens.
Awareness notices a tiny teardrop in my eye. A hunger.
Awareness notices the skeletal architectural holding of this messily organized assemblage, also surrounding the architecture, somehow related to being here with you all.
Awareness notices remembrance reaching out in a time stretch. Awareness notices displacing locus. Awareness notices music.
Awareness notices legs. Awareness notices laughter. Awareness notices awareness.
Awareness notices my belly rising and falling. The breath, just like a child's.
Awareness notices sensations of vibration in hands and legs as speaking happens. Awareness notices visual field of reds, yellows, edges of turquoise flickering back and forth. Awareness notices images of shape of body.
Awareness notices a dull pain, my forehead. Awareness notices its own centering. Awareness notices the sounding out of that which is fading away.
Awareness notices if it could be starlight, it could travel anywhere, touching everything all at once, meeting itself for everything all at once. And if we all went outside, that same starlight would touch us all over now.
Awareness notices bodily integrity. Awareness notices sensual areas. Awareness is noticing, palpating these sensual areas.
Awareness is noticing crossed legs and sounds outside from machinery and a disappearance of the frustration of the sound of the machinery simply by noticing it.
Awareness sees an image of Ophelia in the water, surrounded by flowers, floating.
Awareness notices hearing sounds of trees, wind outside. Awareness notices coolness on surface of skin from morning temperature. Awareness notices sense of being listened to, vague awareness of being known.
Awareness notices its own boundlessness. Awareness notices that it has no limit.
Awareness notices everywhere that is or could be being is there also, no matter however at once it could be in any other place or in any of the places that we are. No matter where we look, it seems like being would be there.
Awareness notices immanence. Awareness notices nothing in the picture. Awareness notices distraction.
Awareness notices darkness, intention in the eyes of trying to see something that is not there.
Awareness notices tenderness for everyone here. Awareness notices ribbons around us.
Awareness notices head tilted to the left, sensations and stretching on the left side of the neck. Awareness notices sense of the whole of going on and going on and going on. Grateful it doesn't need me to notice it.
Awareness notices unspoken fellowship.
Awareness notices previously unknown tension. My eyebrows, my entire face, this kind of cloggedness, and this feeling where my skull meets the top of my neck, this kind of weird place of where the cranium is axised on the spine. But there's this like how much how tensely I hold to sets of habits that become unknown just in the very presentation of my face, and then that in the letting of those tensions rest the actual birthing of a new way to encounter others through my face.
Awareness notices hearkening. Awareness notices trying to represent. Awareness notices fragility towards speech.
Awareness notices that words come of their own accord when Seth lets them come of their own accord.
Awareness notices innocence. Awareness notices shyness. Awareness notices fear.
Awareness notices that it wasn't noticing sense, vulnerability, imagining vague possibility, being judged, Awareness notices sensations of cool, warm openings on surface of skin. Awareness notices current sickness, fuzziness.
Awareness notices light filling up the dark, trust filling up vulnerability.
Awareness notices this hot, dull, tingling ghostliness of my legs from being asleep in the same position, but sitting with and just kind of attending to that pain. Seems like why I'm noticing perhaps a spiritual immaturity, because that kind of infringement or attentiveness of my awareness to that perhaps keeps me from being more open by way of that kind of pain.
Awareness notices unconspicuous being moved. Awareness notices continuity. Awareness notices different aspects to its passage.
Awareness notices saliva in the mouth. Awareness notices a heart that's beating faster, or perhaps notices a heart that was beating at the same rate. It just failed to notice. Awareness notices a breeze on the right hand and stillness on the left hand.
Awareness notices warmth in my heart. Awareness notices angels' wings covering my heart. Big white wings.
I'm going to shift the instructions just slightly. I'm going to bring both of them together. So we'll do awareness notices and then awareness is. I'll go first, same order. Awareness notices a sensation of stillness under all of the sensations of pressure and warmth and pleasure and pain on the surface. Awareness notices eyes closed, vibration of voice resounding in chest. Awareness notices exhale. Awareness is the medium of everything just said.
Awareness notices its own formlessness and its gracious pouring out into form. Awareness is fleeting.
Awareness notices that grasping becomes grasping can only be grasping by way of being ancestrally linked to graspers. It's kind of an image of living memory as my hand. And awareness is interrogative. Awareness is archaeological. Deeper and deeper into its own self-organization wherever it looks.
Awareness notices inner preparation to speak. Awareness notices performative act of speaking. Awareness notices self-affection. Awareness is time.
Awareness notices that it doesn't know what time it is. Awareness notices an opening in the openness. Awareness notices an effort to open, to listen to others. Awareness is this openness.
Awareness notices newspapers, too many newspapers. Awareness notices struggling. Awareness is freedom.
Awareness notices that it doesn't know what it's going to say about what it notices as it notices sensations of feet and hands and visual impressions of the outline of the body, sensations of coolness on the arms. Awareness is the secret sense of continuity of everything just said.
Awareness notices an unspeakable call from far, far away. Awareness notices the beyond. Awareness is wide and open.
Awareness notices tension of the openness to the free happening of things, and awareness notices that human awareness can be afraid of that and can be closed to that. But it's like awareness can even be confused in its own closedness. But then in those moments of openness, it's like tricky moment, weird moment. Awareness is tension right now.
Awareness notices a shared space of attention. Awareness notices familiarity. Awareness notices eye movement. Awareness notices localization. Awareness is explorative unfolding out of one point.
Awareness notices a slight opening between the eyes and hands grounded on a soft surface with knuckles dragging like an ape and a smile coming on my face. And it just keeps getting bigger the more I talk about it. And there was a bit of moisture in my eye. Now I think it's odd how close tears bring us to joy and sadness. Awareness is something beyond any singular emotion.
Awareness wants to follow the call, hear the calling from beyond. Awareness notices aloneness. Awareness notices courage. Awareness is hearing, listening.
Awareness notices it is the previous unfolding of whatever it's going to say. It notices is the place where it touches itself, unfolding itself, noticing previous creases from other unfoldings that go back forever beyond itself. Awareness notices a deep breath, all a continuity. Awareness is the most familiar stranger. Okay, now let's sit in silence for 5 minutes and then we will go into dialogue. Begin. Okay. So if your awareness has its eyelids shut, go ahead and open them. Notice the other the warm wiggly things kind of like you, just a little different on the screen. And just want to open, this is just a free form dialogue at this point. But I would love to hear first just from some of you, like what that was like, what you noticed, what struck you about that. And I think one of the things I wanted to, at least it occurs for me is that there's something necessary about awareness, mind, thinking, and being, to know themselves as a kind of togetherness. And I sense it's because that there's a radical split, so very, very deep. So in some sense, this conversation is in some ways responding to that necessity. What is this relationship, if there is one, between awareness and being, between mind or language and what is spoken about, all of that. So what was that like? What do you guys ask?
I noticed 2 different awarenesses, like my normal awareness of what you have, like your persona awareness. And as we went on, I let go of the persona awareness more and more. And I feel like the more I let go of the persona awareness, the closer I got to being.
Yeah, sorry, you can go, Flavor.
I noticed kind of a struggle between hanging on to my own awareness and being open to what others were saying. Wanting to be open at the same time, to hold both at the same time. Let them, allow them to mix. I'm not proud of myself, but I felt sometimes rather protective of my own images. I'm not proud of that. I mean, that's not right, but it's practice, I guess.
Thomas, were you going to say something?
Yeah. It, it, it did. I mean, there was a sense of, I suppose, just in one sense, kind of practicing dying. Like even in the speaking and even the letting, just in all that kind of letting, loving kind of sensing, and even just letting my words out and then witnessing as my living word coming out would then be this dying back into silence. So there was just this real sense of like practicing dying, and there was a lot of senses of like being very fully close to the reality where the human finds themselves waking up in relationship to the reality of their own suffering. And then just, so I suppose that kind of practicing, learning how to suffer with oneself is the way in which you can actually be compassionate with others, to be able to suffer with others. And then just, it feels like this very interesting spot, or ultimately this way of being where it's just like, then it's like, why do we have, as our species, in our kind of waking up to our kind of being, we have all of these kinds of pivotal figures who, like, we have, there's something just very, like, even with Christian mystics, it's just they walk around joyfully grieving all the time. They're in that constant, like, liberative, open freedom, but knowing that that is simultaneously that dying. So they're just in this very, very, very interesting place. So it's just like I felt like, and I don't think I was doing it well to any sense, but it did feel very much like an appropriate kind of practicing dying for a greater stillness and openness to those who, in their closedness, like my being able to be open to, as I've putting it recently, the Smeagol that may be burdened by all golems. Like that kind of just, it felt like practicing passion for me.
Practicing compassion, you said?
Yeah.
Daniel.
For me, it was like a continual back and forth, as Thomas said, kind of like dying, or then being reborn. Or we could perhaps say that there was just a lot of tension, and it was kind of like easing out, relaxing itself. Or this coming back, as Seth said, is more like to one's own awareness. But that's more like, but then also kind of like this going out towards that's beyond, that more, or just also that in between, that holds us all. And I just noticed then that there was this movement, this going in and going out, so to say.
Leonard.
So for me, what I kind of remarked is that there is, so there's a certain space of attention, which like is, it feels like it's walked through. And so what is interesting is, so not all therein seems, at least me, like, or seemed for me to be contained in words. Nevertheless, there's like also kind of like the observation or like the remark Seth was giving, like there's kind of a difference, like me noticing, or like something in me noticing, like me preparing and for the next, because there's a kind of rhythm to it, for the next next step I will, or my next inception in the round. And then I've kind of, so there's something in me noticing the preparation and the laying out of words and sentences, and like catch some thoughts. And then on the other side, like on the other, you could say, I don't know, on the other side of the difference, there is like a strange attentiveness to, and like a deadly safe attentiveness to that, this is like prepared, this is like in a way staged, that and but it's not wrong, but it's it when somebody else in the round was speaking and was like more in this, letting go, and you immediately, like something in me immediately noticed that kind of, and that this performative trait therein, where we cannot say exactly like where these words come from, but you can say that they are not prepared, they are not beforehand, and so there's like this trait, or like this offer to try it, to give it a try, to let go of this. I mean, there is like preparation, unfolding of words, but to open up to something performative in this practice, and in this like being open to this rhythm and like this space of shared attention.
Open to this rhythm and this space of shared attention. the nice language sandwich you just laid out there. I'm wondering about it for the German speakers here. It's kind of, I'm wondering about, and I've been wondering about this, about what is the, philosophically speaking, if you will, awareness. Is there, what's the parallel word in German for awareness? If there's a direct parallel. I think there's two German speakers in the Zoom room. Would they please speak?
I mean, yeah, you and Daniel will like perhaps help me out, but yeah, there's like, you can say Bewusstsein, which is like, can also be like consciousness or being conscious, but it also has the trait of Gewahrsein or Gewahrwerden, and like, which kind of means like to be aware. I mean, this would be like my natural translation of it. But it also has this trait of like gegenwärtigen, like sense of like bringing and gathering around you in a sense. Yeah, but perhaps Daniel. So help me out.
bringing into presence, something like that. That's gegenwärtigen. Kind of like, because the noun would be Gegenwart, and that's the present, like in the present tense that that's saying. The first word that came to my mind was Achtsamkeit, which is a little bit perhaps more like mindfulness, but that was the word that came to my mind at the first time.
Because it's interesting, because I know in English there's awareness, and then there's consciousness, right? What are some other ones? I mean, those are the two that come to my mind. Knowing, it kind of seems to imply that knowingness, awareness, consciousness. Now, consciousness, in my estimation, is a little bit downstream from awareness. It's like I can somehow be aware, right, without being conscious of being aware, right? Like there's this kind of there's something about like where like consciousness seems to, at least to my ear, implies more deliberation or more reflectiveness or something like that, right? It has more of a sense of something being conscious, whereas awareness doesn't really have the something, right? I can become aware of being conscious, right? There's something prior I sense about awareness. There's something about like an embeddedness that awareness is that thing I always kind of find myself already being, where consciousness has a sense of where I can become conscious, right? Through somehow being aware of my awareness or something, where it touches itself, and then I can have theories about it or something, you know.
Awareness seems like vaster, than consciousness.
Yeah.
It seems, vaster.
Yeah. And I think the thing that Thomas, I think, spoke to is, I appreciated what you said, this kind of place of suffering, right? Kind of to suffer together in some sense. That there is, if now I don't know if I notice it, like when we say awareness is, I don't know if I notice it as much as when I said awareness notices. In some sense, it's like, whatever I say that it notices is in some sense what I'm in some sense suffer through, right? Like like awareness notices in some sense is what it can't be what can't be transparent to it, right? Like there's this kind of my sense with awareness is that it seems to be this transparency that comes to itself when it hits other than itself somehow, right? And that meeting, right, or that recognition of meeting is this right, is this kind of sense of and that could be good news or bad news, right? Like, but on some level, I had this sense as we were doing this, and I've had this, through meditating for years and years and years, and doing this kind of this practice, bring the language to it, that in some sense, awareness is there's so much unity. There's almost too much. It's like, Jesus Christ, like stop, universe, stop bearing down on me, because this awareness is just aware before I can do anything about it, and I sense I sense that.
It's like tyrannical. That's what I felt. I almost said that. It's a tyrant. I wanted to get out of, I was really happy to get out of the just awareness is into where there were images and things that were allowed to arise. And then, of course, the suffering came in when there was things that I didn't like arising.
Yeah, right. And there is this kind of quality, is like those, especially those things that you don't necessarily like, that I guess this is kind of the meditative part of it, right? Why, or the mindfulness part of why one would cultivate a practice of this is that, it's like, most people just live their whole lives, right? Managing those things, right? Kind of not noticing their concern for that they are a self in another person's eyes, and then trying to control that at every second of every day without ever kind of waking up from it, so there's this sense in which there is this kind of level with, once you start to practice being aware, like where you start to notice like that you're embedded in a bunch of stuff that you don't want anyone to know about, nor yourself, right? There's a kind of courageous aspect in becoming aware, right?
Mm. Mm.
Yet there's this quality, the thing that I like about this, and this is where it starts to get, I think one of the things I've because I'm realizing that there's something I don't see articulated much, and I'm noticing it as it's coming, as there's these relationships coming together online, whatever the hell it is that we're doing here, right? Like with Halkiam, right, and the philosophical conversations, and that there's philosophy and the tradition of philosophy, right? And then there's this whole movement out in California, right? Something like the human potential movement or the self-help movement or like the personal growth movement or whatever that is, right? And they're not exactly the same thing. However, one of the things I have found is that they're not exactly the same thing, but however, for me anyways, that the I don't know, the spiritual practice part of it, right? The human potential movement part of it, the psychedelics, the culture, right? Something hurts bad enough such that I start to look at what's going on here with existence. Was the opening that led me into the philosophical conversation. However, once I got into the philosophical conversation, I started reading Heidegger and going into all of this kind of stuff. I found that there was less and less and less people to talk to. However, I couldn't really quite tell what the difference was. However, there was a difference such that people, when I would talk about philosophy, people's eyes would just glaze over. And I noticed this in a like I think I saw a video of Johannes speaking to somebody, and he was talking about like he doesn't meditate, right? That he probably should meditate. And I'm like, on some level, I know what he's talking about, but on another level, I'm like, what is he actually talking about that he doesn't meditate, right? Like, so there's something I found myself in doing this practice that I noticed that there's a place where this comes together, right? And like when I start to like look at awareness and start to try to speak the context, not what I'm aware of, but the context that is aware or awareness itself, it feels exactly like that same thing, that same, whatever that is, that experience of sounding out sense. And so that's one of the things that's interesting to me about this practice is it seems to bring these two worlds together in some way that I haven't quite, I've known that they come together, but I don't know exactly how to articulate it. But I found myself having this, okay, this is where they meet somehow, right?
Could it be marriage of like the poetic and philosophy? Because California, kind of there is a poetic element, so that whole New Age thing. Right. And kind of like a practice like this, for me, it brings the two together.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think it brings people together better because the philosophy gives you like a language to work with.
Mhm.
And so I really like what you said, Vibert, because like the poetical and the philosophical like are a dialectic unto themselves. And when I just go philosophic route, you run into your own weird existential crisis because it just becomes super dry and just abstract in your head. But then when you go into the spiritual realm, like I feel like you get into that awareness you're talking about, where it's just like awareness is great, but it's also like flat in some way. It's just like this flat surface, and somehow like when the two speak, you get this mirroring effect that blossoms out.
Mm. 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 Who's the guy who talks about who's been trying to reawaken this sense of philosophy as practice? Is it what's his name?
Pierre Hadot.
Hardot, yes, because he's done a lot of work, and I think he actually, in my estimation, he overstates this a bit in his work, but or I just get a little suspicious of his fanaticalness about this or certainty about this, but I think he has this real deep point of that as you go further and further back in time, that philosophy implicitly seemed to have that you could say the human potential movement and the philosophical movement were kind of the same thing, right? So like, you go into the Plato Academy and it was just assumed that there was this kind of initiation that one goes through in attaining in attaining these kind of deeper conversation about that which is, right? That it had a sense of these kind of rites and these passages and these practices, that it's not just philosophy was being was knowledge, or like in an abstract sense, but that one needed to become someone who could know, right, through the philosophical sense. So there was, but my sense was that it was not distinct. There weren't these two different domains as of yet, right? So I think that it was just implied that they belong together. And now I think that I think it's interesting because there's that same domain and they come from different sets of distinction, but they're coming together here on the internet. So you're seeing this all the time. I think all of us are probably an example of this on some level, right? Of having come to philosophy through an opening of a personal development kind of a thing, right? Or vice versa. Whereas I think before perhaps those categories were very clear. Not that they're clear now, but like that they just belong together in some natural sense, such that they didn't even have to make the distinction between practice and philosophy, right? But I have to say that this has been my experience, though, that at some point, and I've noticed this with clients and just all the people that have gotten involved in circling and stuff like that, is that oftentimes, we could say that one becomes willing to wake up, if you will. Usually, it's when something hurts bad enough, right? It's like when one suffers more than one can take, then they become willing to become aware that they exist on some level, right? And oftentimes that's usually the locus of what has someone wake up, is like that the consequences of their unawareness, right, becomes so bad that they suffer enough such that they not really by virtue but by necessity, they have to like shift the way that they see everything, right, which can be a transformative thing. However, and this has been my personal experience, and I think that it's, and I think overall, but as one keeps going on, as you keep waking up in some sense, whether or not it hurts, or even the notion of self-improvement has become less and less the thing, right? And what starts to has kind of lit up from, I'll also speak for me, but like for me has been more like I kind of like have less and less of a sense of like even giving a shit about my own personal development, right? It's more like it's been more like the being awake to what's happening, right? Like it's being awake to this kind of mystery that I didn't even know that I was inside of. That this kind of love for the mystery that and the weirdness of how everything that there is anything at all.
I'm not sure that I ever believed at all that I was developing towards something. I mean, that's what I was told, but it felt more like I had to work on my character first before I could start getting anywhere. And I think I'm still there working on my character.
Yeah. Totally.
Mm. But maybe there was, like you're saying, that there isn't no goal. There's no, it's like, when are you fit? I've always been curious about that. Like, when are you wise? Sort of,
yeah,
never made much sense to me.
Yeah. And I think it's like it's the mood of wonder that I think wakes up. That's what's there for me is like because it in some sense it's like I think philosophy. I mean, especially you get this with Heidegger, right? And the phenomenologist. It's precisely of like trying to bring their attention to what's most near, right? Is in some senses the most unfathomable, right? And that sense of nearness, right, where the mystery is like what I've been asleep to, and I kind of come to realizing like I have no idea the source of my own awareness. I have no idea how all of this happens, right? Where this comes from. That mystery that opens up has been the thing that kind of has been drawing me ever since into this kind of conversation, and keeps being maturing and awakening and opening up into it. Because I know that for me, when I was, in my early 20s, and I started reading Heidegger and didn't understand really any of the things he was saying. However, I was hearing something that I didn't know what it was, but it was motivating me to find out. And it was like just grappling with these texts on my own that I started to notice, like much later, that what I was seeing, because this happened at the same time that circling started to be like, we started to develop circling, and I would read Heidegger, and then I'd go and I would circle with the group, right? And we'd be developing this. And it was like a couple of years later that I kind of come to, and I realized that I listened to some of the language that came out of that and the way people talked and the practice. And I was like, oh, it sounds like Heidegger. That in some sense, and I think it's taken me a while to put this together, but that to try to understand, say, like when you read, say, Being in Time, right? To attempt to understand what you're reading is this on one level, this exercise to step so kind of outside of your normal frame of reference, to then look back over and try to understand what's being said, that is like some kind of yoga almost, right? This kind of stepping out and looking back and doing that over and over and over and over and over again then you walk outside and then you look around and you realize that when you go to see something, you step out and then you look back and then the whole world changes and you describe it differently and you find yourself inside of it. That there's that notion of philosophical reading and grappling with the text that I keep finding that to be the case over and over and over again.
I find that totally like what I'm getting from circling. I think I said this the other day when we were talking. It takes you to the imaginal. Like it's that. I mean, these are my words and words that I'm familiar with. Discerning the voice of the diamond. It's kind of that which you do not know, which is it's like understanding a poem in another language. Even you can feel the rhythm of it. You can feel so on some level you get it. And, you know, for me, practices like that is really struggling with what is there and being very faithful to that question, trying to be. It's kind of like receiving too. It's opening yourself. It's very vulnerable in a way because I am receiving and I'm open. If I'm listening, I'm open to possibly something wonderful coming in, but possibly something that's hurtful or unpleasant or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's creating a space which is, it's that receiving and risking loss.
Yeah.
Which is maybe why we don't want to do it. Maybe. So, yikes.
I think it's like what I'm hearing in that, Fiverr, is like, you're speaking to the vulnerability of this, right? Which is always the mixed bag, right? And I think this is one of the things this is what connects back to Thomas, what you said in the very beginning of the conversation. Wait, I can't tell if everyone's frozen. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. One of the things that I think you spoke to, Thomas, was this kind of, there's something about bringing your attention to awareness itself, that you start to realize that whatever it is that you're aware of, there's a suffering there. You start to suffer, we kind of start to suffer with each other. And that there's something about awareness that seems to be a kind of vulnerability in itself. Like it is almost, in some sense, awareness seems to be some kind of sense of like a, it by definition is it is by virtue of its vulnerability, right? Like it's like it is its own transparency to whatever it's aware of, and by the time you're aware of it, it in some sense is in some sense an admission of being vulnerable to that which you're aware, right? So like there's this quality of awareness, and what it's aware of in some sense has this quality of being penetrated by things, right? This kind of openness to the world, and this way that we find ourselves deeply concerned about it.